Hello everyone, in this Viva, I will discuss how collaborative partnership with families and communities underpin children's inclusion, learning and development in Australian early childhood education and care context. I will connect this discussion to the National Quality Framework, the National Quality Standard and EVA Volume 2.0. I will also draw on research to explain why family and community engagement matters and then recommended practical ways educators can establish and maintain effective partnership. My main argument is that partnership is not an extra activity added to the curriculum. It is a part of how quality early learning practice achieved. Families know their children in ways educators cannot always, because including their interests, routines, culture, language, strengths, and even relationships. Educators contribute professional knowledge about learning, development, and pedagogy. When these forms of knowledge are combined, and decisions can be more responsive to the educational individual children. Because ESICO identifies collaborative relationship with families as fundamental to quality outcomes, while community partnerships strengthen inclusion, learning, and even well-being. Therefore, genuine partnership means sharing knowledge, responsibility, and decision making rather than simply informing families about their services already decided. So, in this approach is strongly supported by Australian policy. The EVA-LF Volume 2.0 identifies partnership as a key principle and emphasizes that learning is strengthened. When educators work with children, learning is strengthened. Families, other professionals, and even with the communities. The NQS Quality Area 6 focuses specifically on collaborative partnership with families and communities because Standard 6.1 requires respectful relationship with families, including respect for their expertise, culture, and even the values and beliefs. Because Standard 6.2 states that collaborative partnerships enhances children's inclusion, learning, and even well-being. The framework therefore positions families as partners and even contributors, not the passive recipients of information. This is also connected with inclusion, responsive teaching, relationship, and even leadership across the whole quality areas. Next slide. So basically, partnership are especially important for inclusion because children and families do not have all the same needs or experiences. An inclusive service listens before making assumptions. For example, a family may explain that children communicates best through visual supports, uses a home language, has particular sensory preferences, or even needs extra support during the transition. This information can help educators remove barriers to participation in EnviroLF Volume 2.0. It also emphasizes equity, even inclusion of high expectation, meaning equitable practice is about providing what each children needs to participate. And rather than treating every child exactly the same, meaningful partnership also requires culturally responsive practice. Recent Australian research on engagement with Aboriginal families highlights the importance of questioning practice that reproduce unequal power and instead of building relationships that are respectful and even genuinely co-constructed. If we look at this, like partnership also strengthen the learning and development because learning does not stop at the service door. Because when educators share observations and learning documentation with the families, families can contribute their own exploitation and even the interpretation, extended learning at home. Let's suppose Reynolds and Duff found that families viewed documentation as the way to create conversation about children's learning and strong connections between home and the early learning center. Research has also found links between educator engagement practice and even family engagement at home and children's school readiness. And this research suggests that the value of partnership is not simply that parents attend the events. It is the continuity created when educators and family understand what the children is learning and support that learning across settings. And there are several benefits. First, like children experience greater continuity between home and the service. Second, families can have a stronger voice in decisions about their children's learning and well-being. The third one is educators gain information that can improve planning and assessment. The fourth one is children can develop a strong sense of belonging and identity when their family knowledge and culture are visible in the program. Family engagement can also support parents' understanding of early learning because the Finnish Solomon and strategists argue for strengthens based approach where educators build parents' understandings rather than treating them simply as consumers of a service. Importantly, engagement should not be measured only by attendance at meetings or events. A family who cannot attend a meeting may still be deeply engaged through conversation and even digital communication. So the partnership extends beyond individual families. Communities connection can include local libraries, health professionals, inclusion or support service, schools, cultural organizations, Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community members, and even other local resources. This connection can broaden children's experience and help services respond to family needs. National Quality Service like Standard 6.2.3, specially expert services to build relationship and engage with their community. Community partnership can also support transitions by connecting information and responsibilities across settings. However, community engagement should be purposeful rather than a symbolic. For example, inviting a community member once for a special event is less meaningful than developing an ongoing relationships where knowledge, perspectives, and responsibilities are shared respectfully. Even I would recommend four starting points. First one is begin with respectful relationship at enrollment and orientation. Ask families what matters to them and what they want educators to know about their child. The second, use two-way communication. Do not only report what happened during the day. Ask questions and genuinely listen to family perspectives. Third one is use a strength based and culturally responsive approach. Avoid viewing difference as a problem to fix. And fourth one is create multiple ways for families to participate because work schedules, language, transport, disability, confidence, and previous experiences can affect participation. This could include face-to-face conversations, translated information, digital communication, flexible meeting times, family surveys, and opportunities to contribute the curriculum. Establishing a relationship is only not the belonging to maintain it. Educators need consistency, trust, and follow through. If family raises a concern, educators should respond respectfully and explain what action will be taken. Families should be included in decisions that affect their children, particularly allowed around learning goals, inclusion, and transitions. If you look at the pedagogical documentation can be used as a conversation starter rather than a simply finished product. Services should also review whether some families are being heard more about than others. Critical reflection can ask who participates, who may be missing, who knowledge is being valued, and what barriers exist. This makes partnerships part of continuous improvement rather than an occasional event. Consider a child who has recently started at learning service and becomes distressed during morning transitions. Instead of immediately labeling the behavior as a problem, the educator could speak with the family about the children's routine, relationship, and previous experiences. The family might explain that children uses a familiar object and a visual sequence at home. The educator could then work in the family to introduce a similar visual routine at the service and communicate about what is working. If additional support is needed, the service could collaborate with an inclusion professional. This example demonstrates the cycle of partnership: listen, play together, implement, communicate, and review. Most importantly, the children's participation is shared goal. Even to conclude this whole presentation, collaborative partnership are central to quality early learning practice because they connect the children's home, service, and community experiences. They support inclusion by helping educators understand and remove the barriers. They support learning and development by creating continuity between the settings. They also strengthen children's belonging, identity, and well-being. The NQF and EVALF Volume 2.0 provide a clear policy foundation, but policy alone does not create partnership. Educators create it through respectful relationships, genuine listening, shared decision making, culturally responsive practice, and ongoing reflection. For me, myself, Drew, and the key message is simple. Families should not only be informed about children's learning, they should have a meaningful voice in the shaping it. When educators, families, and communities work together, the children is at the center of a much stronger support network. Thank you so much for listening.